here was another 2 feet above where it shows. So our average height, I just ponder 25 feet. If you go to the sheet after this one here, I can show you silhouette. One more.
The survey or the next one?
Next one after this one, please. Oh dear. Keep going. Keep going. There.
Yep.
Here's our silhouette. Our proposed is this outline. The existing home is right here.
Mhm.
Okay. The next piece of this is building location and position. And if we actually track back to, that's fine right there. This outline you can make out here is the porches. The porches in the house. Sorry, I started drawing while you were moving. Here is the outline footprint of the existing home. The mass of the house obviously is this gray block. We've relocated the house so that the front corner right here matches where the existing front corner of the house is. And if we go to the site plan above, this works, we'll see that this is the frontage of the existing house. We step back about 8 feet and come back here. We're using the same setback as the existing house for this portion of the house. And we relocated the building east westerly to create some more space between the garage, the attached garage, and the side property of the neighbor on the left. So what we've done is move the building back slightly so that the impression at the street is not as bulky. Further, we're keeping the setback that's established by the existing, that was established by the existing house, but pushing the majority, almost 2/3 of the house back behind the regulatory setback, which is right there. In relation to the things I want to say about height are these. There is an apparent height of at least 28 feet of the neighbor to the west, I'm sorry, east this way. His height is about 28 feet and change, and his property setback is about 8'6". Our neighbor to the west, if we were to zoom out slightly here, is at setback, and hers is at 22'11". And we're basically asking for variance for this portion of front setback. And because the existing house runs back to approximately here, we're asking for variance for this. And then we've got a little slough here where we're actually adding on to where the apparent size of the existing house is here for this portion of building here. The height of the building along this side is 25 feet. Next thing is materials and colors. I have a PowerPoint provided, but I'm not sure I can share my screen. If you just simply go back to the front slide, that's fine. You can actually stop the share. The pushback was gray and white, the selected colors. And I don't know if you can see Mr. Katz's background, but that is the existing house, which is gray and white. And we turn your attention to the building at 47 Poplar, which is also a modern style building and is also gray and white in a modern styling. So we'd like to ask and push back actually about gray and white being something that isn't or relevant to the discussion, because we know that there are specimens of distinction in the town that share those materials selections. So we didn't change our material selection. We changed our building location, we changed our building height, and we sustain our floor area ask.
Okay, do any of the ADR members have any other questions of Steve?
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
We also went to the city of San Rafael to verify that the detached buildings are permitted, and they issued permits on those buildings as well, as you guys asked last meeting.
The existing garage and the shed.
Bunkhouse, yeah.
Correct, and the porches are called walk-up porches based on their description in that. And then the last thing, Rebecca mentioned that the house is 4342. It's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, 4142.
What you're proposing.
Yeah, 200
What you're
square feet
proposing.
less than she
And
mentioned.
the existing home without the ADU underneath the house is how much, how many square feet?
3342,
Okay,
not
Uh,
counting,
I-
not counting porches,
pardon me?
not counting the side and rear porch. So
Okay,
the living space proper, Joey, is 3342.
okay, okay. The one thing I didn't understand is why would you go to the city of San Rafael? Did I miss something there?
No, he meant that he went to the county offices to get the parcel information to verify and confirm that the bunkhouse and the detached garage were in fact part of the deed and counted as they weren't non-conforming buildings.
They were
non-
permitted.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, sorry, I meant,
And they also found by golly that the two porches were also permitted as well.
okay. Okay, so are there any other ADR questions? Questions from any of us?
I have a quick one. I can't, I'm sure it's in the drawings. I'm sorry, Steve, if it
That's
is
okay.
and I can't find it. What's the plate height of both stories in the proposed?
Great. Plate height lower level or the main floor level is 13 feet.
Mhm.
And the plate height of at the 25-foot point is 24.
Sorry, what's the finished interior?
Okay,
Height
lower
of-
level, yeah,
Third
lower level
floor.
finish interior is 13 feet, lower level, upper level interior is 10 feet.
Mhm.
What about the
in-
primary
interior?
bedroom pop-up?
Primary bedroom pop-up is 13 feet finish.
So 13, 10, and 13.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have a question for this ADU. I guess for Rebecca, I'm just trying to understand still. So this was something that you guys had proposed to build and got a permit for, but it was not built, right? So it's not existing?
Yes, there was an application made through the planning department. The ADU was approved. It has not been constructed. There is no existing ADU.
Okay.
So there's
And
no
so
building
that-
permit, just
that
to clarify
ca-
that.
So that would be 800 feet that is not existing,
Correct.
that's been counted.
Yes.
And a quick follow-up to that. I'm sorry, okay, no, that doesn't. Is that something we're able to do? Let's say a home as an ADU, isn't an ADU permitted to remain as an ADU square footage, not to be folded into the main home?
There's a provision in our ADU code that if you have an existing house that has a legal non-conforming floor area and you convert part of your single-family dwelling into an 800 square foot ADU, you can essentially bank that 800 square feet and then add it on to your house under a discretionary review process, so it's a discretionary review. That is not applicable to this home. They did not take existing floor area of a home and convert it to an ADU through their application. They applied for new floor area. I think maybe
Okay.
part of it was converted, but like 152 square feet.
Okay. And then I just have a follow-up question, sorry. So then with this property, when this project is approved, they could later add another 800 square foot ADU or they would not be allowed to?
If this project is approved as is at 4,142 square feet, they could come in and apply for an ADU that meets those sort of ministerial approvals, which is 800 square feet, 4 foot from the side and rear, 16 feet in height, and meets the front yard setback.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Okay, are there any other ADR questions? Now we would open it up to public comment.
I'm sorry, I have one more.
Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
Steve, when you were explaining which parts of the when you went to your location bullet
Yeah.
point,
Uh-huh.
you were describing kind of what portions of the project are seeking variance relief or relief in the form of variance. And the part that is the garage
Yeah.
is included in that, true?
Yes, true.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, Jay.
No, please, any ADR questions, bring them on now, and then we will go to public comment. Any more ADR?
I just have two other things I just want to clarify, excuse me. So the floor plan shifted over, but nothing changed, right?
That's correct. The
Okay.
coverage and the outline stayed exactly the same, Laura. And we moved it back slightly and to the west slightly.
Okay, thank you. And then the portion of the upper floor was lowered, but portion of the upper floor was not lowered, and then the lower floor was not lowered at all, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other ADR questions or comments? All right, why don't we open it up to public comments? And each person is limited to 3 minutes.
I don't see anybody with their hand raised in the chat box. I'm just looking for a visual hand. And I do not see any.
Okay, so we are going to go back now to ADR recommendations. And I think there's going to be two parts here to each person's commentary. One is the FAR issue, which remains very significant, and the other is the design features and does this meet our design criteria? So who would like to go first on their comments and recommendations? Anyone? I will go first then. I just feel that on the FAR issue, that this is just not right. That this FAR that's being considered from an ADU that was approved but never built, and now being folded into the house and not building an ADU, you just can't do that. And we said that at the last meeting, and it must not have come through very clearly. I would like to not talk about FAR, but it is very much applicable here because it relates to the overall largeness of this house relative to the houses around it. It's in the 3000s as built. It really should only have an FAR in the 2000s if you went by town code, and you're bumping it up into the 4000s and you're not even providing an ADU. So these are all comments we said the last time that were not really addressed. And then design wise, we really emphasized that there's a difference with a ridge height of 28 feet that's sloping down with a gabled roof. It's a lot different when you have a box that's at 26 feet or whatever you guys did, 28'7". That feels a lot different than a house that has a tall ridge, like you mentioned, the one next door, but then it slopes down and there's kind of a graciousness about that. So in my mind, you still have not come far enough to making I mean, no house needs a 13-foot high first floor and a 13-foot high primary bedroom. You could bring those plate heights down 2 feet on each floor and really make this house
Oh.
a beautiful modern house that is a lot smaller in scale and more relative to the neighborhood. But I think what's really driving the inappropriateness of this is that it's just too big. And that's because you are using square footage you don't have. That really is, it's incorrect calculating. So my recommendation as designed would be not to approve this. I also think we said no balcony over the garage looming over your neighbor. That's just balconies that close to a neighbor in the setbacks are really never allowed. People don't want to have someone up on a balcony looking down on them 5 feet away from the property line or whatever that is over there. Anyhow, I wish you had come further and gotten closer to our recommendations from 3 weeks ago. And I hope to see it back kind of coming into line with what we've been talking about these last couple of times. So who's next?
Can I comment to that, or is it after?
Yes, so I'd like to comment to that as well.
I think you need to wait until each person goes, and then you can comment afterward, okay? Who's next?
I can jump in. Yeah, I have a similar reaction. I wasn't sure. I recognize the changes you dropped from the head height a little bit, probably not significant enough. I think we were fairly clear about the deck over the garage, as Joey pointed out. It's, you know, putting a deck on the second floor in a setback that encroaches on your neighbors just isn't something I could find findings for why you would need to do that. I understand from a you know, a desirability to have a deck on the second floor, but I couldn't support that into the setback of the northern yard. Yeah, I concur with Joey. I think the frustrating part about the square footage is that it's, you know, that I understand where you're going. You want to build as big of a house as you can get, but a non-existing ADU doesn't fly, especially once clarified by our partners on the planning department. You know, you could actually come in and build 800 square feet more. And at this particular point, the reason Joey points out the scale and the mass is exacerbated on this particular size lot is because you've got 800 square feet that don't meet the criteria for this particular lot. So I think the rendering I see on the last page of your submittal for color palette, I think I'm seeing a more, I know you said you didn't change much, but I'm actually not seeing the bright white. I'm seeing sort of a muted tone. So I don't have a particular problem with that rendering on 4.0. But I still can't support the square footage request, the deck in the side yard and the north side yard. And I agree with Joey. There's still, the massing is a problem. The fact that we're looking at 2 stories full width of that height is where we see it incompatible with that streetscape. I recognize that there are peaks at 28 feet adjacent, but that is a very different massing and bulk that you're seeing on that streetscape versus this. And it is, you know, I think when you approach it, just seeing the story poles, you know, it's relatively evident that the scale is from a front facade perspective out of proportion with what we're seeing from a bulk and mass perspective. So I concur with Joey's points for the most part. And I'll pass it over.
Laura, Stephen?
I can go. I concur with all the points that you made, Mark, and that Joey you made. I think that this site is somewhat constrained in terms of shape and so certainly, and I think that there's a tradition of being able to replace the square footage of an existing house with a new house of equal square footage, so long as none of the setbacks or kind of privacy issues or anything are exacerbated. And I think that Mark's right that those things are exacerbated because of the extra bulk of this 800 square feet. And so I bet we would all be able to, I can't say that unless we saw it, but I bet we would be able to support a project that was very similar if it lost about 4 feet in height and if it conformed to the square footage of the 3,100 or whatever that existing square footage is, just because there'd be such a dramatic change in bulk that would then feel contextually appropriate. The materials I think are generally okay. I agree with you, Mark. I understand that setbacks would probably need to be broken in order to similarly deal with the shape of lot in the way that the existing house does. But there's just too much here for me to find contextual appropriateness and to therefore recommend approval.
Laura?
So I definitely sympathize with the applicant and all the neighbors that have had this, abandoned building there for this long time. And I think everybody would like to get this to a place where it is approved. But unfortunately, right now, the design elements are really like the bulk and mass of the building is really being influenced by this additional not legal FAR that's being added or counted. So I think that would probably solve a lot of the issues and, get it to a place where everybody can, have an improvement. The one additional comment, so basically I agree with all the comments earlier. The one additional thing I wanted to just mention was, in our last meeting, there was an applicant who couldn't add a third window on the side. They could only replace with the existing amount of windows. So I just think, you can add screening with shrubs and things and trees, but I would just also, in addition to all of these comments that we've been saying, really consider where the windows are located and the amount of them and how it responds with the neighbors' houses and how it affects their privacy. So that's it for me. Thank you.
I would follow up about the second story balcony. We had an applicant the last time who was really trying hard to get a balcony on the second story that was 30 feet away from the property line. It's just generally not a recommended feature unless it's quite off of the property line and definitely out of the setbacks. So I think the direction's fairly clear. Rebecca, do you need, are you clear on our recommendations?
I'm clear, thank you.
Hi, Joey and Rebecca. This is Veronica. Can I still have an opportunity to speak as well before we move on to the next applicant?
It's actually, I'm realizing it is not, you're really supposed to do that during the presentation. Once it goes.
You're not giving us a chance to say what, you're giving us feedback and you're not giving us a chance to explain why this building is built this way or why we requested this size, etc. And we don't even get to discuss or present the other buildings that you've approved in the past. So let's take a look at 47 Poplar, which is
Simon, this is not the time for that.
Okay, but this is not
how these
fair. It
meetings
has to
work.
be a communication. It can't be just one way. You guys go, hey, this building doesn't meet the street, etc. When you have other buildings that are over towering other buildings.
Excuse me, it actually can be one way.
Why
And
is
that's how
it
it
one
works
way?
here. It's just how it works. It's how it works.
Well, it's not fair to the applicant. We're a taxpayer in the town. We were directed
Okay.
by the town to present this way. We presented this way, and you guys are not accepting any of it. And you're not hearing it. Not only that, Steve didn't even get a chance to present the other homes. 2 Hilgert is sitting 40 feet off the street level in height. No one says anything about that.
Excuse
The
me,
Simon?
17 Norwood is
The public
20
hearing is
feet.
closed, so if you'd like to address the ADR, you're more than welcome to send an email to them tomorrow with anything both you and Veronica would like to communicate. But at
That's
this
no
point,
problem. We'll be every month on this meeting, so it's okay.
Well, you are not, you're just coming back with the same thing. You need to
Oh, no,
listen.
we'll change it
everything.
around. We'll keep changing it and changing it. It's not a big deal. But if you guys don't listen, explain to me how 47 Poplar gets approved
Sir,
in a street of all the shingles, yet you're discriminating on our home, talking about gray and white colors when our existing home is gray and white. So
Sir,
where
I
is that
think-
coming from?
I think that Joey, what we'd like to do is just kind of get more clarity because we feel like we're getting mixed signals and we don't feel like we get the proper feedback for the amount of effort and work that we're putting into the project.
It's crystal clear. The feedback has been the same for the last couple of meetings. We've said the exact same thing. If you go back to the minutes, what we have said is that ADU 800 square feet just can't be a part of the house. You're not rebuilding an ADU. So shrink it by 800 feet, lower the plate height.
We don't want to lower the plate height. We like tall ceilings. We're matching the peak, just like 47 Poplar matched the peak of the other homes. Why do
It's
we have to
different.
lower our ceilings?
Get out of the setbacks then. And sir, I really think this is not I think you've been advised what we are recommending a couple of times. And we're just going by the code. We can't grant something for your project and set a precedent that we don't allow for other projects. It's just the town code. And I would ask that you respect that and you respect us. We are volunteers. And I would ask that you just be respectful of us. Thank you. Okay, I think it's time to move on. Rebecca, are you clear on what the recommendations are?
yes, I am. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next project. And that is,
Thank you, Joey.
thank you, guys. That is 11 Locust. Rebecca, would you like to present that to us?
Nishant is here tonight and he will be presenting 11 Locust. Nishant, you should be able to share your screen if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll just pull up my PowerPoint. Give me 1 second. Okay, good evening, everyone. This project is the request for a design review and a variance at 11 Locust Avenue. The project is the site is zone R1 B10, and the site is developed in approximately 43,500 square feet. Site has an average slope of 8.9% and is therefore not considered a hillside lot and not subject to those standards. There are approximately 9,900 square feet of impervious surface existing that will be changing slightly under the proposed project. One thing to be aware of is that this project site is bordered to the west and east by a creek, to the west by Corte Madera Creek, and to the east by San Anselmo Creek. Therefore, development on this site is subject to setbacks of 25 feet from the top of each creek, in addition to standard yard setbacks. This is an exhibit showing the proposed project. There's also an enlarged exhibit showing the pool area on the northeast corner of the site that I can pull up if you need. As a reminder, I emailed you an updated plan set earlier today that reflects a few changes, mainly that the existing pool, walkway, and auto court paving will be replaced and repaved. And the original plan set mentioned an emergency generator that is no longer part of this project and is going to be subject to its own process and is not being considered here. So in summary, the project proposes to resurface the existing pool and add steps, a spa, and benches within the existing footprint of the pool. There will be no increase in that footprint. The existing walkway and auto court will be repaved. There will be a small increase in the footprint of that. The existing entry gate on Locust Avenue will be replaced with a 6-foot tall automatic gate, and an existing arbor and associated walls between the auto court and pool will be replaced as well. The total impervious surface of the site is going to increase by approximately 250 square feet. Project requires design review for construction of a gate over 48 inches tall and adjacent to a public street, and a variance for construction within setbacks. And thus far, planning has not received any comments from the public. I will turn it over to the applicant if they want to add anything.
Hi, my name's Eric Blazin. I'm the landscape architect. Thanks for looking at our project this evening. Maybe you can bring up the drawings again, if that's possible, and
Sure.
I can talk about those briefly.
Is there a specific exhibit?
Yeah, if you can go to just L1.0, the site plan. Then, yeah, keep going. There you go, the site plan, perfect. Oops, sorry. L1.0, the site plan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that one, perfect, thank you. So you did a great job explaining everything. I try not to reiterate, but basically a lot of the things that we're proposing exists already. So we're proposing a sliding entry gate at Locust instead of a double hinge gate so they can have more room to get out. And then we're proposing changing the paving from asphalt to concrete, integral colored concrete, and some stone, Connecticut bluestone paving. They have kids and they want to play basketball, and they wanted something nicer than the asphalt. And then near the garage, there's a little trellis that exists there now, and we're making a new one. So that is another one that's kind of replacing kind. And then from that area, we're putting all new bluestone paving in. And then the swimming pool stays where it is. It's the same size, but we're putting a spa and steps and a new automatic cover inside of that inside of that pool. And the depth is pretty much the same as it is now. So there's not any big excavation going on for that. And then actually, so can you go to, I think it's the last sheet. I just want to show the gate. That's the trellis. Okay, so then, yeah, this one. So at the front, we're keeping the fence where it is. We're doing a new number board form concrete with a camera and a keypad, excuse me, and a Knox box for the fire department. And then this gate's all metal and see-through, and it's black. And then there's a column and also a pedestrian gate off at the end. And so all of that's in the same location as the existing gate. It's 6 feet high, like the existing gate is. So that's, and then we took out the emergency generator, and that's a separate permit. So we're focusing on our work here, and that's pretty much what we're doing. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Eric, I have a quick one, just the materials on the front entry gate columns. It's exposed board form concrete. Can you just give me a thought what that ties back into from a material perspective of the project?
Yeah, it's, we wanted to make it more contemporary, and it'll be integral color as well. So they wanted something that was more of a contemporary look for the entry. And so that's what we came up with.
And what's the color of that? I apologize if I missed
It's,
that.
oh, no, it's fine. It's a warm gray, not a cool, like if you just did regular concrete, that would be cool gray. So this will be a warmer color.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Are there any other ADR questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one more. Yeah, you said you're replacing the drive court. So I think we got additional drawings today. I apologize, I've been quite busy. The overall impervious surface net calc is what again?
You know, it's actually 156 square feet of additional paving because we did want to put more paving in the back, but then we found out, that, you know, it's in the creek setback. So there was a switch and a take there. And so that's where we calculated out to be 156 square feet of additional paving.
So it's the impervious and pervious, what's the up on that?
It is, I think it is, sorry, it's on page, it's 0.03%.
Addition,
Additional,
okay,
yeah.
okay. Did you ever consider making the driveway pervious instead of concrete?
You know, we did, but then, you know, they have kids and riding bikes and bumps and playing basketball with a bumpy paving. They didn't want to go that route. So that's why we stuck with concrete.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, ADR?
I just have a question. The building that's labeled workshop, that's something that's just existing? I didn't walk back to that little corner. 'cause
It
there
is,
was a-
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Okay, and so the variance that you guys need is just basically replacing existing things that require a variance with similar ones, right?
Yeah, they're in setbacks. So we're not, yeah,
But it's nothing new that you're adding.
no.
No, those setback variances won't increase or be caused by anything, any type of new development.
So where's the additional paving?
Just a little bit by the swimming pool. Yeah, if you move the cursor, it's like right there where your hand was, not that whole thing, but just right there. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's the additional paving.
Got it.
So that you're always walking on paving to get to the pool and not going from lawn to.
Right, right. I was back there today. I can see the reason for that. Are there any other ADR questions? And how about, let's open it up to the public. Are there any comments or questions? Rebecca, anybody's hands up? I can't see. Nope. Okay, so let's go back to the ADR for recommendations. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay,
I don't see any issues with the changes that they've proposed. Considering they're not really adding anything new from what they had. So I would go ahead and approve this project.
all right. And Marcus Steven?
Yeah, I concur with Laura. I don't have any issues with this project at all.
Steven?
I agree.
Yeah, and I think it's fine. I have no issues. The one thing I just, from a design standpoint, you've got a shingled house and I know you want to make the entry really modern, but it seems very stark to me. And I wonder if you could, I know that board form concrete pillars are very beautiful just by themselves. But is there any way you can add some landscaping out there at the gate that's a little more welcoming? It seems very stark to me. But that is a matter of your taste. And that would be my recommendation, to approve this project as drawn, but maybe something to soften up that, because that is that's the welcome to your home. So it's just something to consider.
Thanks for bringing that up. Actually, on L2, we show Euonymus japonica as a plant that will go in front of it. So good catch. Sorry to
Okay.
point that out.
I just didn't see it in the elevations and it looked a little
Yeah.
harsh to me, just
Yeah,
steel and concrete. Like
right.
let's green it up a little bit.
Yeah,
But other than that, I'm in
Okay.
full support of it.
thank you.
Yeah, Joey, it shows on L4, just in a different elevation. It actually shows the bushes in elevation.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, okay. Still seems like a little like small plants with a lot of concrete and steel, but that's kind of the owner's prerogative. It's just my personal, it feels like the gate doesn't have anything to do with the house behind it. But that might have been intentional.
Yeah.
And otherwise it's completely conforming and we don't really have a lot to say about it. So Rebecca, did you get all of our comments?
I got them down, yeah.
Okay. Or
Thank you.
Nishan, sorry. All right, I think we can close this one out and thank you for presenting.
Thank
And,
you.
It looks like a lovely project. Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks for your time.
You're
Thanks, everyone.
welcome. Thank you. All right, the next project is it's a conceptual design review. Hold on, I'm just going to our for 34 Poplar, it's Jeffrey and Cassandra Sugar Revocable Trust, Tristan Warren Architect, and let's have either Nishant or Rebecca present it to us. That would be great.
Hey, Joey, it's Tristan. There's no third item. My client, Jeff, is trying to get on and it says the host won't let him on. So if we're up right now, is it possible to get Jeff on board?
Well, we will make that happen. Hold on. We're
Cool. Thank you very much. So I'll let Rebecca go ahead and then I'll jump in and just kind of go through our project.
great. Thank you.
You're muted, Rebecca.
I don't think she realizes she's muted. Let me.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a lot of feedback?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a presentation and we're having some audio problems.
That's okay. I don't think you
I
generally.
don't need one.
Conceptual. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it, Rebecca, but if you could bring up the documents, that'd be fantastic. Otherwise, if you could let me host either way, I can go through the documents.
Yeah, everybody is allowed to share screen, so you can go ahead and bring them up.
Okay, let me see if I can do that. I apologize if I'm slow on
I
this.
can look quickly too.
Hang on, I'm going to share screen. We're going to see everybody for a second, and then I will move us off and start with my presentation. So first, let me say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do this. I'm happily surprised that the ARDB has a forum where we can go and ask questions about projects that for various reasons are presented with certain challenges, so we can get out in front of this and hopefully have something that Ross can approve down the line. Second, I'd like to apologize for one small error in my part, which is that there is no basement scope. That art studio and bathroom in the basement was from another project, and I just didn't happen to catch that when I sent stuff to Rebecca, so I apologize for that. That said, our scope right now, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So our scope right now, this down here is our existing profile for our project or our property. It's a single family residence with an attached garage, one backyard space. It abuts to commercial properties in sort of the downtown portion of Ross. And then there are two residential projects to what we're calling the south side. This is really the northwest corner. So we're calling this the north side, sorry, the northeast corner. this the north side, this the west side, and north for our cardinal points to orient. So we have residential on the east side. We have Poplar Street, which turns into Ross Common at this building on the east side, and then we have Redwood on the back. It is a street-to-street lot. It is 7,500 square feet. It is 50 feet wide. And so it presents some challenges, as many of these smaller lots in downtown Ross that were sort of entitled and grandfathered in a long time ago present, given the new zoning ordinance. We'd like to propose an ADU, a standard ADU size of 800, less than 800 square feet, living room, bedroom, and bathroom and closet. So nothing out of the ordinary there. What we're looking for is, given the constraints and the challenges of this site, to put this ADU at the upper floor. And I want to just walk through the constraints. So the first constraint I mentioned, it's a smaller lot. It doesn't have a lot of space to put an ADU on. Really, the only grade level space we can put an ADU on is in this backyard right here. As you can see, 19 Redwood is actually within about a foot of the property line. 2 years ago, in November 2010, these same clients proposed a pool in the same area, and it was turned down because of the proximity, honestly, of 19 Redwood. So as we go through an ADU, we're assessing that, we're looking at that. The neighbor has changed, but we want to be sensitive to the fact that this is a small lot. It is a very tight neighborhood. It is a non-conforming neighborhood. Secondly, this is in the floodway, and our floodplain here is about 2 feet above average grade height. This is about 20 feet in the backyard here, and the floodway is 21.8 certified. So that would mean that any floor level for the ADU would be 3 feet above grade, which obviously, when we're talking about a 16-foot metric, circumscribes what we can do design-wise. Third point is, this is a commercial building, and its mass and scale is larger than anything in the residential neighborhood. So when we reviewed and evaluated the best place to put an ADU, we didn't come to this like as our first conclusion. What we came to is, to sort of tick all the boxes, we feel the best place to put the ADU is above the garage, and then coming back and having an entrance here that also allows for an entrance to the back of the house. Doorway is here, and then our ADU is on the second floor. Now, I've brought ADUs on the second floor to Ross before. I understand that they require at least the conditional use permit. We would also be requesting variances because the existing, and let me go to the site plan here, the existing garage and the existing house, like many of the other houses in this neighborhood, you can see the two adjacent ones, are all non-conforming in terms of the side setback. They were built before the side setback was honestly set. So we're trying to stay conforming to what's the existing architecture on the site. We're not trying to change the mass or scale any more than is really necessary to put a comfortable ADU in. Right now, I'm trying to keep my plate heights here between 7 feet, 7 feet 6 and 8 feet. So we're not asking for an exceptionally large plate height. We're keeping our roof pitch here to match the existing roof pitch of the house. And as I said, there is a little bit of blocking of windows on the side property for that commercial structure. However, those windows are probably within the side setback. And if that building was built today, they would not be probably legal per the California Building Code. So we're trying to be sensitive as much as we can. But we are also very constrained. So my goal tonight is to kind of present this to you, get your design feedback, obviously, but also get some feedback on, are we on the right direction? Are these variances that, if we present them properly, would be something that the ARDB could potentially approve? Or are these things that are really non-starters? And if they are non-starters, maybe we could have a discussion about, what other direction we could go. Because honestly, I don't think there's a good design solution for this, which doesn't encumber either my client's property or the neighbor's property. And I'll then turn it over to you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. How about, do any of the ADR members have questions?
Can I just add one thing before we jump in?
Sorry,
Uh,
Jeff.
Just so everybody knows, we moved to Ross in August 2019. We have 2 young kids that are 1.5 and 3.5 years old. So we regularly have grandparents that want to come visit, help us raise our children. And so having an ADU is something, important to us. We think it's also important to the city to continue to be able to add additional units. And, our goal is to be really the best neighbor we can be. We really like this neighborhood. Our kids are going to the Ross preschool. My wife has joined the Ross Auxiliary. And, ahead of this, we did, reach out kind of softly to the neighbors at 19 Redwood to kind of understand how they feel about it. And, this is something that they're sensitive to because of the pool, but they actually like it on the north side. And they prefer this design as I talked to them ahead of time, trying to figure it out. So just wanted to kind of put all that out there and before you guys kind of jumped in.
Thanks, Jeff. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. How about any questions to the applicants from the ADR?
Can you describe, sorry, this is Mark. Can you describe what is actually going on that second floor in that commercial building? I apologize, I don't actually know what's up there. What are those windows? What's going on in there?
The best I can tell is that you've got a standard sort of, 1970s to 1990s over under commercial structure, in which case you've got parking in here, back here, and then you've got leasable office space on the second floor.
Yeah, you have a ton of parking on the back side, Mark. You got some office space, and then on the front side there, you got a nail salon, a hair salon, kids clothing store. So kind of like
So it's general purpose office up top.
Yes.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. I haven't been up there.
Any other questions? Okay. How about, why don't we see if the public has?
Sorry,
go-
Joey, just on the topic of the windows and the neighbors' windows, is there like a section that shows this a little bit more clearly?
At this point, no. I'm just going to pull up my 3D model.
Sure.
We modeled these the best that we could. Obviously, this is a preliminary review, so we haven't had surveys done. And so I had my team kind of take a look and roughly put the windows in where they are. So you can see that this office space here has a nice frontage of windows here. And then they do have 3 windows facing what is now my client's property. Right now, obviously, this window is really facing the side of the house, but these 2 windows do face a gap within the property.
Might go to 1 point or 1.2 shows your snapshot of your rendering there.
Yes, we do. Hang on just a second. Let me go back to
There you
that, and then we'll go to the images.
There you go.
So these are those right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a commercial space, and this is a private residence. So if we were looking at this conversely, would that be allowed today in terms of privacy? I mean, I've heard discussions of balconies and things like that today. Not saying that we're trying to preclude this, but I'm just asking the question in adverse. Is that this is a commercial building and this is a residential property. So by in some ways blocking their view, I don't see, from my client's standpoint, I don't see a negative to that, quite honestly.
And would you not have any fenestration on that side?
No, we're not. We're trying to provide privacy on both ways. So for 2 reasons, we wouldn't have a fenestration on that side, with the exception of maybe some skylights to let in light. One is that this building quite currently is within 4 feet of the side setback, actually in some places within 3 feet. Therefore, the CDC precludes any fenestration. secondarily, we're not trying to we're trying to be sensitive to everything that's around us in a way that I think is less Ross and quite honestly more San Francisco. In other words, we've looked at all the properties abutting us and tried to do the best we can to give each property its privacy and what I would say is its due. And we feel that, or at least I feel from a design standpoint and an architecture standpoint, that the commercial structure is the most comfortable place to build this, given what's going on in that building.
Okay. ADR members, do you have any other questions? Why don't we open it up to the public? Are there any comments from the public on this project? Rebecca, do you have any hands up that I can't see?
I don't see any hands, but if Tristan, you want to stop sharing your screen, I can see.
Sure,
actually see.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't see anybody.
Okay, so then let's bring it back to the ADR for recommendations. Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Okay,
And I'm going to share my screen for 1 second. This is just the Google aerial view. I feel like, so I think we have to ask ourselves, because this triggers design review, in other words, asking for an ADU on the second story, is it contextually appropriate? You know, does it fit the design guidelines? And does it cause harm? And I feel like there's an opportunity to add mass to this site in this area, you know, adjacent the commercial building. And if the proposal were to be 2 stories in this area, and that 2-story section ended flush with the commercial building, I would think that that would be contextually appropriate. I have a little bit of a hard time with the length of the schematic of it being 2 stories all the way, you know, out to the existing garage, because the existing garage is a cute structure. It kind of fits into the streetscape, and I'll have to drive by and check it out. But I feel like bringing 2 stories all the way forward just feels a little bit awkward, feels ungainly. And just because we want ADUs and they're excusable if they fit certain criteria, it doesn't mean they're excusable if they don't fit those criteria. And I think that that's becoming clear in this proposal a little bit to me, that that it feels like a little bit much right there in the area on top of this existing structure. But I think that this area would make sense for that. And so for me, if the proposal were revised, either to keep all of the bulk there and including pushing the garage, or if the garage were maintained in its position and then the 2-story section of structure was placed in that zone abutting the commercial building, I think I could support it. You know,
Can I make one comment on the Google Earth? Excuse me. Is that actually that view is prior to the last remodel that?
I understand that.
done?
I know. I
Okay.
understand. I
Okay,
understand that.
I just wanted to make sure you knew, because it makes it a little bit harder to do what you're asking. But I appreciate the sentiment.
I understand. I just don't have the benefit of this kind of view in your deck. But we could pan to your Revit model if you'd like, from that kind of same perspective.
It's up to you. The point is taken. I just wanted to make the point that when you reference that, it is a little bit harder than it appears from this image.
Totally get it. Totally.
Yeah, and Stephen, is it Stephen? Did I get that right?
Yes, yeah, sure.
It's and to Tristan's point, the garage has been pushed back from that Google Earth. You got
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. But this kind of explains, I think your point is very valid, that there is this kind of sheer 2-story volume against you. And if you didn't have that, there would be really no case to argue for a 2nd-story ADU. And I think there is a case to be made for a second story ADU. I think the case is great here for a second story ADU, and it makes sense in terms of kind of the actual physical context, in terms of ramping up to a taller structure physically, in terms of density and its position downtown. And I think but I feel like the bulk is feeling big to me out towards the street of Redwood, but I'm happy to hear what other folks on the ADR think about that.
Who would like to go next? Well, I will. I actually agree exactly with what Steven's saying. There was something that was bothering me about the two-story mass coming all the way out to Redwood. But I really think it's a great idea to put the ADU over on that side by the commercial building. You already have this big wall. You might as well just, you know, kind of make use of that side of your property. It would be great because it would make your whole property a lot more private if you didn't have windows on the side of toward the commercial building. One thing I think you should really be careful about is now having these windows at the second story so close to your neighbors, kind of looming over them. I think there's a little bit of a lantern effect that you should pay attention to when you come back with your, you know, your real application. But I do feel like it would be great if you could hold the two-story volume to the same line as the commercial building. That just makes a lot of sense to me, because just as Steven said, Redwood is the more residential street. And even though I think all of us can agree, like, how did that commercial building ever get built like that in the setbacks? But you don't want to exacerbate that situation and make it so dense there. So I think it's a great direction. I think you're onto something really good, putting the ADU over there. And I would have no problem with a second story ADU, again, if it were pulled back. So those are my comments.
Hey, Joey, for my edification, you mean you described lantern. It's not a term I'm familiar with. Could you explain for me?
Well, we use that sometimes just to speak about a lot of windows on the second story that emit a lot of light at night. So it kind of messes with other people's views at night. All of a sudden they're seeing big windows that are filled with light high up, and it's kind of the lantern effect. So be sensitive if you now have a second story that's, you know, it's quite a bit higher than the smaller house off to the south, that, you know, be sensitive to what they are seeing.
It's a great comment. Thank you. Now I understand.
Okay.
Guess we should call it the lighthouse effect or something. I'm not sure.
Lighthouse, lantern. We talk about it a lot.
We do.
A lot of glazing high up. It's, you know, people don't always have window coverings, so it's just this big lantern.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I can jump in, and I think it is the only spot on the property that works. So I don't think we need to argue that it should sit on the lawn, and that doesn't work. I think while I appreciate Joey and Steven's comments about pulling it back to the facade of the second story of that adjacent commercial building, I can also see the limitations square footage wise that would make a tiny little blob. I think just from what I'm seeing here, and I apologize if I'm wrong on that, but it would be pretty small. It would essentially be the size of your open deck area above, right? It'd be like 350 square feet, maybe. I mean, I'm probably just guessing.
Yeah.
So what I think might be interesting to mass study. I also agree with Joey and Steven's comment that facade, that's not in keeping, I don't think, at that point of the property on that road. But what I was thinking is if you pulled that back a little bit, you know, maybe not all the way to that two-story building, but maybe it's 5 feet off or something. Maybe it's between 5 and 10 feet off. But you utilize a form that's much more like the main home roof, right? Instead of having a big gable at the end, is it a hip that you've got a dormer on that softens that facade a little bit? You're pulling it back and you're softening that facade, that elevation, so that you get your mass further because I think you need it from a square footage perspective, but you also soften that 2-story wall essentially from that street. And it's not I mean, again, in a different context, that is a nice little elevation. I think Stephen even called it like a nice little garage, right? And it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of want to see it pull back a little bit, minimum 5 feet, maybe it's a little more, and maybe hip it and see what that would look like if you popped a little dormer up there. I don't want to design it for you, but I'm thinking of ways to break that mass up and push it back a little bit.
Mark, you're speaking, sorry, you're speaking. a little
Yeah,
bit-
so I think you have some opportunity to do some little articulation that reduces the impact that my fellow ADR folks were referring to, and I think it could be quite successful.
I think Joey's and Stephen's points are well taken. My biggest concern is if we have the garage still sticking out, how does that bigger mass adjoin to the garage? It creates some things. So from what Mark says, it gives me a cleaner sort of massing that allows us, and I have to talk with my clients, but from my standpoint, if I can get the square footage in 2 stories and pull that garage facade back a little bit towards the house, that to me sounds like we're working towards a reasonable compromise. Jeff?
And what about, I'm sensitive to all that and curious about trees and different things to help make sure it fits in and it's covered and it's not, does that, are those things that are taken into consideration, Mark? I'm just kind of wondering.
Yeah, absolutely they are. I think Jeff, the trouble you end up with is many times you can't really screen a garage, right? Because you got to have access to it. So that when you're looking at that from Redwood, you can't really screen that facade in any effective way other than sort of from down the sides of the street. So I think that's where you get that mass that Joey and Stephen are talking about. You can't really hide it in an effective way with screening or plantings. And I'm a firm believer that while many times we recommend screening and trees and to mask some massing, I never want to rely on it because the next thing you know, the fire department comes and says, cut it down, which they've done to my neighbor's house just recently. So I'm very attuned to it. So you try to rely on that screening and then you end up losing it.
It's taking the greatest weapon out of the architect's toolbox, I tell you, the defensible space.
Tristan,
Yeah,
could you share A 3.2 again?
Yeah, sure. Hang on just a second. Sorry. Let me get there. Share. Come on. There we go.
So Mark, oh no, yeah.
A 3.2. There's 3.0. That's 3.2. There we go. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, perfect. So Mark, between grid line A and C is 360 feet or something like that, I think. And so if you put twice that volume there, a 2-story volume between A and C, you'd have 700 feet, I think.
Oh, so you're talking about utilizing the ground floor patio.
Yes,
open
I know.
space.
I understand
Okay.
that the design wants it open because it makes a more awesome yard, but it's at the detriment of the volume that I think is obtrusive. And so I just want to be clear about what you're suggesting, because Mark, you're saying, hey, maybe if you take grid line D in the proposed, which is the far left grid line, and you're saying just hip that guy, you'll make it less massive. Totally agree. And they're like, maybe you need a dormer out of it because you need a little bit of light or whatever. And then you're saying maybe take that front facade at D and shift it back towards C by 5 feet. And I'm just saying, to be clear, that if those were the changes and it came back just with a 5-foot setback and a hip there, it's not enough mass change for me, just to set up expectations.
Okay.
It's just,
I think, Stephen, the challenge with filling in that space below is you have a flood height that's going to lift up the overall mass of that 2 stories that might be now.
yes, yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right.
That's what I was, because I originally thought the same thing. Just fill in that space and you've got it.
You're right. You're right. No, you're totally right. But that all said, though, we have to find that this is contextually appropriate. And so just because you want to do an ADU doesn't mean you can necessarily.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I think.
I just want to be really clear that, like, because Tristan, you're latching on to, you're saying, well, yeah, Mark, I think we can work with that if we just shift that back a little bit and we hip it. I just don't think it's gonna have enough material effect to not make that still be this
Does
massive.
hip
wall.
it mean turn it?
It means basically do this with the roof. So we're knocking the edge of the roof back so that the mass towards the street, Jeff, is not as big. So we're making it less obtrusive from Redwood.
He's
Oh, okay. But yeah, there's a big slant, so you kind of lose a lot of usable square footage. And just so for my understanding, because I'm new at this, A 1.1 is the perspective that you're looking at if you go there. Like, you know, that if you look at the top right, you know, view, like the top right picture, like that's the right side. Yeah.
Sorry.
Like this is the kind of look when the ADR is thinking about this massing, you're looking at from this perspective.
I'm thinking about when you're driving up or walking from the left and looking at it from the right and straight on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So mainly, if I understand you correctly, and I think both you, Stephen, and Joey have the same point, that you're concerned about the general mass as you come down Redwood, and that the residential scale of Redwood, where that ADU is above the garage, doesn't really support that in your view at this time, and that we're asking for something that's beyond just a single family residence that's within all of the ordinances. We're asking for something that would require exceptions. And at this point, you feel that there's potentially a better way to solve this problem further back on the lot.
I think what's happening is that the ADU is dwarfing the main house.
Mm.
And that's kind of an uncomfortable bargain you're making there, where all of a sudden this structure you're building is actually bigger than the house.
This is what you're talking about. Right?
Yeah, when you take that whole leg, that whole L,
Mhm.
it looks bigger than the house. It's certainly, it's massive.
Mhm.
I support the location, just not how big it is and how far out to Redwood it comes at 2 stories with no relief.
Okay, those are points well taken. I mean, the whole point of this is for me to get a better understanding about what we're going to be coming to when we come to y'all. And obviously, we're going to be, as I said, because of the constraints in the size of the parcel, we're going to be seeking variances. So we want something that can be supported from a design standpoint, and then we'll deal with the finer points of the request on that.
What's the setback from Redwood supposed to be, Tristan?
I'd have to double check because we were sort of working with the garage, but it would be considered a rear yard setback. So I believe it's 20 or 25 feet. I think it's on my site plan here.
Yeah, but and if we think about it as a front, I think it's still 20 feet.
Yeah, no, so the 40 yard, it is a 40 yard rear yard setback.
But
Yeah.
let's think of it as a 25. What's the setback of the garage, the existing garage from the sidewalk?
The existing garage is, I'd have to pull that off of, I don't think
I mean,
it's
it's a
on the
rough, a little bit more than a car length.
Yeah,
So
so
a
it's
little less,
roughly
yeah, a little less
20
than 20
feet.
feet.
20 feet, 18 feet, something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We should make sure Laura jumps in here if I can't see her.
Yeah.
Okay, before she does, I think that maybe, I don't know. So if it's set back 25 feet and that the front setback along Redwood, the front setback is 25, and I consider you to have 2 front setbacks or 2 frontages. Maybe it's if we do like a walking survey, or you do a survey of how far stood back the rest of the buildings are, and they generally are approximately 25 feet. Maybe we'll be okay. You know, maybe Mark's suggestion of shifting another 5 feet back and hipping it would do enough. I don't know. On the right hand side of oh, sorry, you're in the Revit view.
Well, yeah, and you could look at the neighbors directly across, because that's, Stephen, to your point, like that's it. It's not, it depends on how hipped it is, because I don't think their roof is as slanted. But anyways, we can check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, I understand where you're all coming from.
I'm trying to say, if we contextualize it as a frontage along Redwood, and we kind of are contextually appropriate about the streetscape of Redwood, then I think it's not overreaching to to think of it as appropriate.
I mean, obviously, our goal is to work with you guys. And, the feedback is really appreciated because, we took our first stab at it, but we were quite honestly, kind of shooting in the dark, and we basically just used the existing footprints and things like that because it's the easiest place to start.
Yeah,
But-
that's great feedback.
Well, I think you could do even more bulk and mass adjacent to the commercial structure. And I think that it's at the bubble of acceptability on the front, or is not acceptable in its current form, but maybe Mark's right, maybe 5 feet would do it. I don't know. And we should let Laura speak because.
Sorry, Laura.
Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, I was just gonna offer one other idea and, maybe space-wise it doesn't work because you guys are also adding on to the house, right?
No, we're keeping the house the same size. The only, this wall, let me go
Between
here.
A and
This
B.
wall here is going to be incorporated at the same height, but that's our entry space. So we come in at the same level of the house, and then we step up to the ADU so that we can get it above the garage and things like that.
Mhm. Okay.
But this again, the lift, this is the finished first floor of the house. It's been lifted to be well above the floodplain. So we're not actually adding any bulk to the house.
Okay,
What
so,
if you did? What if you did anyway? I'm sorry, Laura.
oh, no, I was just gonna say, instead of trying to put it up on top of the garage, if it was just in that space between the garage and the other building, but you could rebuild the garage, or make the whole volume wider, would that give you the square footage, like the enough space for the ADU? In a way where it's not.
It's possible, the thing that, when, oh, what's his name? Gosh, it's too late in the evening. When the architect, Jeff, help me out. Polsky, yeah, he's gonna kill me for not being able to remember his name. When Aaron did this originally, he created a really nice sort of opening from the house to the backyard. And so that's why we were trying to keep this bulk and whatnot over here, so that we didn't preclude what's working really well with the existing architecture to gain our square footage. So it's a really tricky problem. And I mean, I think you're pointing out all good points. I'm just trying to do the best I can with the tools I've been given. And at the end of the day, I'm also trying to make sure that when I come before you formally, we're presenting something that is an asset to the neighborhood, not something that's creating extra bulk and mass and is going to be something that's going to be challenging to get approved.
What would happen if you left the garage where it is? And I think this is a paraphrase of what everybody else has been saying, but just infill between the garage and the house for the ADU.
We can take a quick massing study of that and look at that. It hadn't occurred to me, I think, because when I started with this, I was really worried about how that made the garage feel. Now, maybe we can come up with something that's nice and works well, but I was a little concerned about putting the amount of square footage and mass that we need for the ADU between there and what that meant to the scale of the garage, which I agree with Stephen that the garage is a really nice little structure.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet. Maybe you have that 1-story structure and then it steps back to the just keeping the ADU at the height and the scale of the main house. And like Laura said, maybe it gets wider.
I think the challenge would be the intersection between the main house and that infill piece. From a form perspective, that might be the biggest challenge there. Right, you've got that little connector right now that kind of works because it's lowered, which sort of makes the massing of the house still works. You can read that form. But if you did something too tall in between, because it would have to come up an extra,
Yeah.
It's worth studying for sure. I would wonder how you'd figure that one out with that dormer at the top of the house. The roof form is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
It might work. It could be a super successful piece.
I support the location of the ADU. I just think that it needs to be massaged so that whole structure doesn't read to be so much bigger than the main house.
Okay.
We can massage it.
I mean, I think there's, what you've given us is there's places to work with it.
Yeah.
So.
I like the
think-
walking study thing too.
I think all the comments are well taken. I appreciate all of the feedback. It gives us a direction now where we can kind of go and see how much we can satisfy. Then, you know, when we're comfortable, we'll probably come back with a formal proposal for the ADU in that location, somewhat modified.
That sounds good. I think, does anyone have any other comments, Laura? You're pretty clear on what we're all talking about, direction wise?
Laura,
Yeah.
Stephen, Mark, Joey, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time for us. We know it's a long day, so we really do appreciate it. It's very helpful for us.
Well, thank you for, I really like when people do this conceptual process first. I think it's really helpful for everybody.
Here, agreed.
Absolutely.
All right, so thanks, guys. What's next, Rebecca?
The next item is information and discussion, if anybody has anything.
I do not.
Nope.
Okay, neither do I. Or any new agenda items?
No.
I don't either. So then the next would be adjournment.
I
Just a
move. Oh, God.
question on the next meeting. Just want to confirm it's August 16th. Is that right?
That's what I have.
Okay, I'm gonna be out of town visiting my family in Michigan, but I can try to Zoom as long as it doesn't go super late.
We could maybe start at 6 if others agreed so that it's easier for you.
I mean, don't change it on my behalf.
Yeah,
but-
but I could do 6 that night.
Okay with me too.
We can check with
Fine.
Mark
Yeah.
Krichnet if it is as well.
Okay,
But that might help you, Laura, to be able to be in attendance.
sure.
Okay,
I can reach out to Mark.
yeah, let's
tomorrow,
check
find
that out,
out.
see if that works. And hopefully we don't have one of these killer, like 7 project nights.
I don't think we will.
Okay, those are tough. Does anyone else have anything else to say before we call it a night?
No.
Nope.
I don't. Okay, so who would like to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Another
Good
fun one.
evening.
Have a
Talk
good
soon.
evening.
Okay, you guys, see you
Time to
later.
get a drink.
I know. Bye. See ya. Bye.
Bye.